So at this point, they say you can't come out and it's nice to keep burning. That way I can actually see it.
Yeah.
Put that just be a point.
There are a couple of those feels like
Yeah,
it's so wrong.
There was one thing, so that's why I'm making sure you didn't.
Yeah, it's wrong.
That's why we use. Yeah, if it wasn't. Get back. Yeah.
The household tax and 130.
So that way I can tell how it's like.
Building in the backyard that's being used as an office.
No, she doesn't, no.
Did that come from?
I don't think that I think
It's like a window shipping. That has a window right
It'll be a crapshoot.
Is this the one that you were hosting at?
Yeah, it's right across the street.
Oh, really?
It's like, where?
Yeah.
What's there's that wood barrel sign.
Oh.
Round, something like that.
I'm here too. Let's go take a look now.
Yes. Yeah. Just don't do you.
Your mic's turned off. Watch the J6 hearings. Yeah, learn to move the microphone around. They were-
We are live streaming and I can hit record when we are ready. And we're recording.
This is the call to order for the Durham Village Commission hearing. Today is July 6th. It is 4:04 p.m. We're here at 1 Lower North Front Street, second floor, room 204. The next business meeting will be Wednesday, July 20th at 12 p.m., 1 Lower North Front Street, second floor, room 204. Next hearing will be Wednesday, August 3rd at 4 p.m., same bat channel, same bat place. We'll go ahead and swear in staff. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do, Morgan Brown.
Thank you very much. And the commissioners present, start with the left.
Ned Thiel.
Anthony Hartke, chair.
Teresa Durst. Karen McCoy.
And we'll move on to the staff approvals, which begin on page 9 of your agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from 616 Mohawk Street and 637 South 6th Street.
Okay, thank you. Any other recusals? I'm going to recuse myself from GV-22-07-018 613 Lathrop. All right, hearing none others, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to ratify the staff approvals.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. Move on to the approval of minutes from last meeting, June 1st, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it, the motion passes. We will move on to the applications for certificates of appropriateness. I need to repeat myself on the first one.
360 Jackson Street. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name.
Jack Reynolds, an attorney with Smith and Hale, 37 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you, sir. Morgan?
Proposed work description for this application is for various recommendations. They will be CC 3332.031A to allow a 3-unit dwelling structure, CC 3312.49B to reduce number of parking spaces from 2 to 0 for third unit, and CC 3332.14 R2F to allow a 3-unit dwelling on a lot of less than 6,000 square feet. Single-family home was converted into a 2-unit dwelling around the 1940s, which is indicated as COA for variance recommendation in 1979, COA number 19475. The existing awning was installed in 1988, COA number 88516. This applicant was reviewed in May and received a recommendation for commission, COA number GB 2204020, after being continued from April. The applicant has returned with an additional variance recommendation needed before they can proceed through BZS. The new variance is the CC 3332.14 R2F to allow a 3-unit dwelling on a lot less than 6,000 square feet. Staff recommends that the commission recommend approval to the BZA as submitted. Basis of the staff recommendation is the proposed work is consistent with German Village guidelines. Zoning variances, page 139.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Anything to add?
Nope. Once again, we were before you in May, and staff had said that was the only 2 variances we need. And as they were writing the ordinance, it went up the food chain, and somebody made a determination, although you all had recommended approval for 3 units on a lot of 0.11 acres, which is less than 6,000 square feet. They said they did not actually vote on that specific variance. So I'm back in front of you all asking for that specific variance.
Essentially the same thing as what we approved in May.
Nothing has changed. It's reiterating what was already approved.
Commissioners?
I move on application GB 22-07-019, 360 Jackson Street to approve or recommend as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Thank you, folks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Got the minutes note that Mr. Harkey has returned.
Steps in today. All right, we'll move on to item number 2, GB-22-07-020, 495 South 4th Street. You both please raise your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Samuel Shadid.
Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey L. Brown, attorney with Smith and Hale, representing the applicant.
Thank you.
Proposed work description is for a variance recommendation for CC 3312.49 to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 35 to 0. It has come to my attention before this meeting that it's actually going to be 30 to 0. Applicant can explain further. Staff analysis, according to the applicant, the prior tenant, Harvest Pizza, had expanded into the building to the north along East Livingston Avenue. The current tenant, Bristolino, had moved into the same space and continued to use the expanded restaurant space from the previous tenant. The prior tenant did not deal with the need for parking variances for the expansion. The existing landscape and patio was approved in 2007, COA number 07728. Staff recommends the commission recommend approval to the BZA as submitted. Basis of staff recommendation is that the proposed work is consistent with German Village guidelines. Zoning variances, page 139. That's what's left.
Anything else to add?
No, I think staff covered the situation. My client was very surprised when the city cited them because he assumed that he was leasing 2 restaurant spaces, which is how they had been operating prior to his involvement. I noticed when I was preparing for this meeting, I looked at the site plan and realized that I didn't do a very good job with my math calculations. So this just breaks down everything and gives you the correct numbers. Somehow I added like 28 and 3 and got 36. So I apologize to my math teacher. But it's a continuation of the existing situation in terms of restaurant occupying the space. The city asked us to do a parking study, which we did. They reviewed it and approved it, so the city staff is in favor of the application. The only other question I had is, we had talked about, Morgan, about getting the patio approved in front of this building too.
I don't believe so, because it was originally approved in 2007. I haven't seen any alterations to it.
I didn't think that patio came out in front and showed the tables in front of 495.
I believe from our records they did. I can double check that, but.
Okay, well, that's, obviously we want to make sure we cover everything. So we'd like to continue what my client expected that he was leasing in the first place. And we've done what the city staff and the traffic people have asked us to do.
Questions, comments from the commission?
I guess my comment was the approval of this previously with the previous tenant, is that he was supposed to provide 50% of the parking required at a off-site location, and that's what he didn't comply with? Is that correct?
I'm not sure, Commissioner.
We have, again, we thought that was taken care of, but my client does have a lease arrangement with the property across the street to cover the 4 spaces that were required in the prior variance request. So we will be submitting that to the city should the BZA, we will approve our application to show compliance.
And how many are required by the restaurant if it, without a variance? 30.
Well,
Sorry.
the
Right in
original,
front of me.
the original variance was though to allow the construction of the building to the south. So that consisted of the restaurant and a unit above and the patio. And so that was approved with, as you pointed out, with the condition of providing 4 off-premise spaces. When I asked the landlord's representative where are those spaces, he didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So we are basically having to start from scratch and cleaning up what wasn't done originally when Harvest was there. Harvest started in the back building, created Curio in the front building, and continued to operate. I'm not sure how they were able to operate, but my client took over in October of 19, and then 2 years after that got cited by the city regarding the parking, and that's when I got involved. So
It just seems to me that the required, whether it's 4 spaces or 50%, I don't know what the terminology is, should still be part of this.
yes, I mean, yes, this would not invalidate the prior request. This handles the conversion of the building along Livingston from office into the restaurant and covers the patio that is in front of that building. So the city would require us still to comply with that requirement of the 4 off-premise spaces because of what was done for the new building that was
Okay.
constructed.
Okay. That was my concern, that was still in place and still part of the deal.
Any other questions? All right, no further questions. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, on application GV 2207020495 South 4th Street, I move to recommend the variance.
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
I do.
Yes.
So we want to change it to 30 to 0 instead of 35 to 0 for that motion.
That's fine. That's what we've calculated.
Yeah,
And just to.
yeah, to be correct.
Any questions on the corrected motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you.
Morgan, if you just check about the patio and let me know if we need to bring that back.
Yeah, I can check. I will get back.
Thank you.
No problem.
Moving ahead to item number 3, GV-22-07-021, 784 City Park Avenue. The applicant here for item 3784 City Park Avenue. I'll mark that one to come back to later. All right, moving ahead to item number 4. This is a continued application, GB-22-06-035, 862 Mohawk Street. Please raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Bill Hugus, architect.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Proposed work description, a new garage was previously approved in December 2021. Number GB 2112-027. Previously approved design included natural brick on the east elevation. Applicant is proposing to paint previously approved brick in lieu of leaving it natural. At the past June business meeting, commissioners asked applicant to clarify what type of brick was originally approved in December 2021. Applicant responded stating that they will be using a thin brick series of Glen Gray OSU blend. Staff does not recommend painting brick, though it is part of the new construction. Basis of staff recommendation is German Village Guidelines, Masonry, page 38, number 6.
Anything else to add?
No, the original approval, I still prefer the natural brick, but there's an interior designer involved now, and she's insisting on trying to find out if we can paint it. Because I think primarily she wants to change the garage doors that were approved. I don't know what to yet, so this is the first step in the question.
Questions, comments from the commission?
You know, guidelines don't say paint masonry that hasn't been painted.
Questions, comments? Is the fact that it's a new brick, thin brick, have any bearing on your?
No, because that was the original intent of the material, was to have a brick up there and be the color that it was. My point.
All the neighboring buildings are brick. That's why I prefer to keep it natural, so.
And that was the intent originally.
Yeah.
Just like the ones that were built 100 years ago, the intent was.
Yeah.
Unless they were soft brick.
The brick has been applied either inappropriately over time, paint on brick.
Yeah.
Inappropriately over time, or because there's damage to the face of the brick.
The Penzones was an addition, the one that's shown in the photograph, painted brick. That was approved as painted brick. At the time, we couldn't get a brick to match well enough, but the Glengarry OSU blend from the previous picture on 700 South Fifth is an example, and it's a really good match.
With no other questions, is there a motion?
I move on application GB-22-06-035, 862 Mohawk Street, to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? All those against?
Aye.
Thank you.
Abstains? None. Motion's denied. Need to call code references. 1 second for procedural. Creation. Code section 3116.11 standards for alteration. Item 5, distinctive styles and features, examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be treated with sensitivity. Number 9, contemporary design for alteration of property should not be discouraged. When such alteration does not destroy significant historical, architectural, or cultural material, its design is compatible with the size, scale, color, material, and character of the property, its environment, and surrounding treated properties. Item 11, just exterior cladding or structure shall be consistent with the original materials used in the property. Should do it. All right, moving ahead to item number 5, GV-22-06-036, 595 South 3rd Street. This is a continued application. Oh, I'm sorry. Jump in line. Oh, no. Sorry, I'll be here to talk about variances.
Oh, yeah, we're just talking about variances today.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I've been in contact with team about the design as well,
Absolutely.
and that would be it's just for everyone. Okay. Just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
If you'd both raise your right hands, all three of you, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record. Sorry. Your name?
Randy Roberti, Design Collective.
Thank you.
Wayne Schick, Cameron Mitchell Restaurants.
Thank you
Eric Zartman, Underhill Lodge.
very much. Morgan?
Proposed work description. This is for variance recommendation. Variance for 331249, required vehicle parking to reduce the minimum number of required vehicle parking spaces from 77 spaces to 0 spaces. 332101, dumpster area to eliminate vehicle maneuvering area for dumpster enclosure. 333218D, lot coverage to increase permitted lot coverage from 50% of the total lot area to 70% of the total lot area. 3332037, R2F, permitted uses, allow office, restaurant, and restaurant patio uses. 333221, building setback, to reduce the building setback from 10 feet to 0 feet from South 3rd Street and East Willow Street. 333225, maximum side yards required, to reduce the maximum side yards required from 16 feet to 0 feet, existing conditions. 333226, minimum side yard permitted, to reduce the minimum side yard permitted from 5 feet to 0 feet, existing conditions. Outdoor patio design application was originally approved with variances recommended in April 2022. COA numbers GB 2204026A and GB 2204026B. Application has returned due to additional variances needed as well as revisions to the previously approved variances. The new variances include 333226, minimum side yard permitted, and 333225, maximum side yard permitted. 331249, required vehicle parking was previously approved but revised to be 77 parking spaces required instead of 73, as well as 333218D, lot coverage was previously approved but was revised for the existing lot coverage area to be 70% of total lot area instead of 63%. The past July business meeting, Commission asked applicant to verify if the variances 333221 and 333237 were existing conditions. They had also asked if the applicant has arrangements for additional parking off-site. Staff recommends the Commission recommend approval to the BZA as submitted with the following clarifications: that the final submittal packet for the previously approved design and materials to be finalized for final Historic Preservation Office approval before issuance of certificate. Basis of staff recommendation is German Village Guidelines zoning variances, page 139. A standards variance grants permission to vary from established development standards regarding setbacks, side yard minimum sizes, and maximum coverage of a building lot.
Right. Anything else to add?
Yes, please. Morgan, if you could go to any of the site plans, please.
Yes.
So what we're presenting today is the same as what we presented to you back in April. The reason for the increase of parking spaces and building coverage is that originally the laundry area, it's on the structure towards the front of the building. You'll see that in the site plans. Were not originally included within the calculations for this. So this is to fix that that oversight. And then with respect to the other side yard variances, those are existing conditions that we're just trying to bring in for the sake of clarity and records going forward. So yeah, those are the basis for the increased variances that we're presenting to you today. I'd be happy to answer any question.
I don't know if this is the correct illustration of, but you said something was not included in the original.
Yeah, Morgan, if you have any of
Page 11, I think, is the one you want to look at.
So I'm not actually in control right now.
Oh,
My helper is back with Stephanie, so yeah.
Page 11.
okay, so the structure on the right side, it's actually, it's about 265 feet, and technically it's part of the restaurant use, and it's also building coverage. So the variances that were presented to you back in April did not consider those in the lot coverage and the parking requirements as well. So that's the purpose of this correction today.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
But to clarify, the R2F permitted use variance, it's already operating in that capacity, so it's protected in existing condition. Building setback, existing condition, the side yard required, existing condition, the minimum side yard permitted, existing condition. So really, we're just asking for a tweak to lot coverage and the dumpster and the required vehicle parking change.
Correct.
Any questions, comments on the proposed variances?
Mr. Chairman, on item 05 GV 2206-036, 595 South Third Street, I move to recommend the variances requested.
Second.
And clarification to fix the bad calculations from before.
As far as the staff recommended condition about single packet.
Yeah, what, I didn't understand that either.
Oh, that's fine. We just haven't, we're still in communication of finalizing the design with the applicant. We received those a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and we're still in communication of that. So I guess for just me issuing the certificate to wait till the design.
It's finalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and the condition applies then. Yes,
If that makes sense.
absolutely.
We have the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving ahead to item 6. This is the first new application. GV-22-07-022, 837 South Lozelle Street.
So the applicant and owner are unable to make it. They're actually dealing. Oh. Okay, that's fine. I heard that you were going to be able to make it, so I apologize.
You welcome first timers.
Never mind that. Sorry.
Would you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Catherine Matthews.
Thank you very much. Morgan?
Thrown off guard. Sorry about that. Proposed work description is to remove existing Pennsylvania black slate on the south-facing roof. After removal, applicant will redeck entire face with OSB plywood with new ice guard and felt and reshingle roof with nickel gray shingles from the approved shingles list. Slate assessment has been submitted. The slate on the west-facing roof line on this property was previously removed and replaced with asphalt shingles. Staff was not able to locate an approval of that rear slope removal, but located a COA for an asphalt shingle replacement of the rear elevation from 2016. That was replaced with nickel gray from the approved shingles list. At the past July business meeting, the commission had requested applicant to indicate north on their site plans to verify which roof slope they would be removing. Commission also asked applicant to clarify if the south-facing removal would include the south-facing slope of the dormer. Applicant responded stating that would not be included in the south-facing slope of the dormer, only the roof. Staff recommends approval of any clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. Basis of staff recommendation, the proposed work is consistent with 31-1611 standards for alteration number 6.
Does the applicant have anything else to add?
I think you covered it. Aside from that, it's where it's located, you cannot see it from anywhere. That's any reassurance. I can't see it. So, but yeah, if you have any questions.
Questions, comments from the commission? None. We have the requisite assessments, 2 of them. Is there a motion?
I move on application GB 22 07 022 837 South Lozelle Street to approve the application as submitted, with the clarification that the south-facing roof replacement does not include the dormer.
Is there a second?
Sir.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving ahead to item number 7, GB 22 07 023 220 East Sycamore Street. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Steve, excuse me, Steve Hurt with Urban Order Architecture.
Thank you very much. Maria?
Proposed work description, remove and rebuild the existing rear porch and balcony per submitted drawings. Add new windows and a new door with transom to previously approved addition. The new windows to be Marvin aluminum clad wood from the approved windows list. The new door to be full light smooth fiberglass door with a transom that will be a sash set into the door frame. Also to add a header and cap detail to the existing side porch. Applicant has recently received a COA for the window replacements of 1/1 windows to 2/2 windows and the approval of the 3/4 light wood doors on the east elevation which passed June hearing. COA number GB 22-05-033B. The following is taken from the approved May 4th, 2022 German Village Commission hearing minutes. Commissioners ask for clarification on door placement and adding 2 new windows on the corner of the addition on the east elevation. Applicant stated that the first floor window on the corner of the addition that connects to the home will be a door, while the east elevation connecting to the original structure will have 2 new windows installed. Commissioners asked if there are original windows in the attic behind the shutters. Applicant and staff stated there are not, and the COA has been submitted to install new. Applicant had a question about the recently approved placement windows, that if the commission would be open to installing 2/2 in lieu of 1/1 that is there now. Commission stated they would be that it would be 2/2. They would need documentation to confirm, but that was recently approved. So staff recommends approval with any all clarifications and materials to be submitted to HPO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate with the following conditions. To retain the clapboard siding in lieu of installing the paneling system on the east elevation addition. Basis of staff recommendation is 31-1611. Standards for alteration number 9 and number 11.
Anything else to add?
I think the other thing, I don't know if you mentioned this, but both porches don't have a header detail. So even on the existing porch, we wanted to add a header, column, cap, trim detail, like the section that I drew of the rear porch.
Page 11.
Primarily, the reason that we are talking about replacing the porches is they are just deteriorated and they're built flush with the existing floor. We wanted to fix some of these things, put the headers on, add a little detail and change the railings. And then Morgan, were you saying that you don't recommend doing the panels between the windows?
Yes, you would recommend keeping the for just what is there.
So the idea there is that just reads as an element with the clapboard siding between it is just to add some interest to that element. And I would think if we were posing it new, that, well, I will let you comment.
Do we have a date of when that addition was put on, just for record?
Yes, framed addition from 1979 and 2007. I think the 2007 was with the garage.
Yeah. So there was a 1-story garage and they put a connector piece. And then they put a second floor on it and changed some of that addition. Lots of drawings.
We do.
Questions, comments from the commission?
I agree with HBO and just leaving it sliding without the panels. It just is a big background to the original house in front. The rest of it looks fine.
Any other thoughts on the panel? Commissioner McCoy for guest panel.
Yeah, I think I prefer the clapboard siding. I think I'm neutral.
Neutral. So you have 2 against and a commission of 4 here would be a no-go.
I understand how that works.
Would you like to amend your application to remove the paneling? Or you could separate the paneling into its own application, part A, part B. You want to get a vote on the paneling? I'm trying to find a way to make sure you get everything you can.
I guess knowing how, I'm just trying to get a sense of if this isn't gonna work, so I assume that I would be okay with amending it to have, leaving a horizontal siding.
I will put one more option on the table to you. If you'd like to split that out into a separate application, a part A and a part B, everything else in part A, and a part B. If you think you can get Commissioner Foley at a future meeting or Commissioner Farrell at a future meeting to be in your court.
I guess it doesn't hurt. I would be okay with that.
Can I suggest my suggestion to you? If he's gonna give you suggestions. I would go for without it right now.
Yes.
If you want to come back and do paneling, I would look at a more holistic approach to the paneling on that addition, if that's what you want to do to set it apart. That's my problem with it. It's such a piece. Doesn't make any sense to me. You're not doing more. If that's what you think is right. That's my piece.
Yeah, the idea was that it's such a sort of lumpy little chunk that we wanted to.
And I think you ought to look at, to me,
It's
more of it.
primarily from the south elevation with
Yeah.
the door.
And the east elevation too, I mean. Don't start tying it together better.
Okay.
I'm not going to argue with it that the building has massing issues, volume issues, relation issues, et cetera. I think you're trying to solve some of that. I think possibly by breaking it up architecturally better would be an improvement. I don't think this goes far enough. I don't know what Teresa's going to say about that, but yeah, that's my problem with it.
So if we would come back, if you would entertain looking at options on the elevations.
I would.
I'm good with that.
So you'd like to amend your application to remove the paneling this round. Yes. Is there a motion? Unless you have something else.
Unless, I would be interested in what Teresa's,
No, I agree.
okay. Just so that we're all kind of on the same page, okay. Mr. Chairman, item 07 GV 2207-023 220 East Sycamore Street, I move to approve as amended by the applicant.
Second.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstains? Nice have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 8, GB-22-07-024, 44 Stimmel Street. Settled. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Elizabeth, the architect.
Thank you. Morning.
Just for warning, it's a little bit lengthy in the staff report, so I just want to heads up. Proposed work description, roof work, construct 2 new dormers consistent with scale, form, and appearance of the existing dormer on west elevation. New dormers to adhere to GBC guidelines. Replace the existing slate roof with a new roofing material to be GAF slate line English gray. Metal ridge roll to match existing. Fold the ceiling and extend the roof over the rear part of the house. This will require the removal of the existing balcony and door on the 2nd floor. Exterior facade work. Window replacement. The requested replacement windows are tagged on drawings and will be selected from the approved windows list. Replace the existing north-facing rear door and window with a double door with transom window and 2 side lights from the approved list. Repair walls needed and keep wood siding on south and west elevations. Repair the exterior and interior spalling brick on the east elevation. Repair the exterior cellar door and cellar stair covers. Repaint entire home. The following is taken from the approved March 2nd, 2022 Durham Village Commission hearing minutes. Commissioners indicated support of roof replacement with proposed GAO slate line. For vaulting the ceilings with the removal of the balcony and door, commissioners wanted to know when the addition was added. Based off applicant's knowledge, the addition was built in 1980s or 1970s. Based off Sandboard maps, the new addition appears larger. Applicant states the addition is currently over the property line. Commissioners asked for clarification if the balcony door is original or was added later. If removal of the door is approved, that might be affecting the original opening. Commissioners asked for clarification if the roof is extending or if applicant is changing the roof line. Applicant states that the roof will be extended. If it will be extending, commissioners would suggest to keep the door lintel if the door is existing and infill with brick to match. Clarification was requested on which chimney the applicant is proposing to remove. Commission does not typically support chimney removal. Commissioner Harkey stated that he will need additional evidence to decide if chimney is or is not original, maybe potential hurdle. Applicant asked to clarify that only the exterior chimney would need to be retained, but interior can be removed. Commissioner stated yes, but to keep it structurally sound. The dormer, commission asked if the proposed dormer is engaging to the peak of the roof. Commission typically requests lowering it at least 6 to 12 inches from the existing ridge. Commissioner Fields states that he has no problem with either 3 separate dormers or 1 singular dormer. Wide may be better for additional space. For the new door installation design on the rear, commissioners do not have a problem with the proposal since the addition is not original to the structure. Commissioners stated that the exterior paint color, the water table, foundation, lintels, and sills should be differentiated in color. If there is work going into the repainting exterior effort should be made to choose a color that is more stone appropriate. So the brick repairs, commissioners requested information to provide on the method of the repairing and how it will be accomplished. Spalling is happening more on the interior of the building. Applicant not sure what is causing the issue. Commissioners suggest that it might be the paint that is causing the water to be trapped. They suggest using a mineral paint that is more breathable for brick, as well as some consolidants can be used. At the past July business meeting, commissioners asked applicant to provide information on the method that will be used to repair the spalling brick, what could be causing the issue. The issues may need to be discussed with the mason. Applicant has responded stating the issues will be discussed with mason and that repairing the roof may also help mitigate the water from getting into the wall. Commission noted the current drawing states the removal of chimney, but the narrative does not mention removal. They asked applicant to clarify this information. The applicant stated no new work or demolition of the chimneys and that both were made. Commissioners recommend the removal of the door on the second floor balcony. The applicant should leave the header not original, which the applicant proposes to leave the header. They also asked the clarifications on the current windows, if they meet egress, or if the door that was installed is there to meet egress. Applicant clarified that the door is not needed for egress. Commissioners requested that applicant clarify what type of siding they're proposing to use. Applicant stated that the shake siding will remain. The applicant has provided an updated color scheme after discussion with staff, where staff had informed applicant that HPO would recommend painting the sills, lintels, and foundation a more appropriate stone color in lieu of black. Color scheme will need further discussion. Staff had also requested the applicant provide addresses of properties used as examples for the current color scheme. Staff recommends the commission offers design feedback on the design, and recommends to continue the application. Basis for staff recommendation: the proposed work is generally consistent with Durham Village guidelines, dormers and skylights, page 98, number 1, 2, and 3.
Anything else to add?
No, we're just trying to keep this consistent with the neighborhood feel and honor the existing house. And bring it back to its full potential by, fixing some of these issues that it currently has.
Questions, comments from the commission?
So the new dormers, are they going on the slate roof or through the slate roof?
Correct.
But you're replacing the sleeping roof.
Correct.
Okay, that's,
So we're requesting that is the use there.
that's what I was thinking, clarification. Okay.
Roof, slate look.
Are the dormers original to the house?
That I cannot answer, if the two existing dormers are original.
Yes.
I do not know. It's hard to say because we believe that this house has two previous additions, so we have the original smaller cottage, which kind of goes to where the dormer currently ends, and then there was a porch in the back part that may have been an original addition or a kitchen, and then there was another third addition done, and that was the last one that we know of.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see the vertical lines in your drawing.
There is some infill there with, like I said, the siding, the shake shingles.
I made the comment at the business meeting about second floor egress. Is there sleeping space up on the second floor?
There is, and it is to the alley side, so that would be the south elevation where that window will remain. There'll be an additional window in the dormer. But there is egress access through a small opening in that window.
That
Second
window,
level.
so on south elevation, is that window 12?
It meets the requirements of the square footage for, I think it's 6 square feet.
Is that a double hung or is that a casement?
It's a double hung right now. We can double check that, and as we replace these, we can double check and make sure that that meets egress.
Existing conditions for changing these things. You've had that happen before though, where
I've had it happen where it was an attic before and they converted it to bedrooms.
bedrooms already and there's a renovation happening up there, they're not gonna try to bring it to code compliance.
Not that, from when I remember talking years ago with the past code guy, he said no, they wouldn't do it.
Okay. I know it's come before us a couple times at the building homes. They only consider the one operable sash space, which would be, even though you could knock the sashes out and get out if you had to.
But it's an existing condition, it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
We've had owners that
we were
didn't feel
in
comfortable.
the rooms.
Yeah, we've had owners that didn't feel comfortable with that and did do the double hung looking casement.
I can make a note of that.
Sure.
Yeah, they shouldn't require you.
Any other questions or comments?
Are both chimneys staying?
Correct, we are not modifying any of the chimneys in any way anymore.
Any concerns to the commission about punching holes in the existing slate roof? Not been a concern before.
The slate roof's going away.
It's one way.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
otherwise, yes.
But the dormer, the one that's closest to the street, I mean, the one in the back that's behind the existing dormer, it's fine, so we always say put them towards the back. Is that one in the front?
It's a very narrow distance between the next house, and this is a very tiny alley, and there's a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees along that side path on the west side.
Any other questions or comments?
The only comment I would have is that I don't object to the paint palette that was submitted with the iron ore. Seems that there are other examples in the village to use it, and it looks like the lentils are already dark on the existing mills. I think the existing black paint Kushner white was never approved. It what? I don't believe it was ever approved. Existing black paint, got it. It was painted prior to that, to not the black paint specifically.
Correct, it was years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the owner does like the black campaign color, I must say, but I've worked really hard to get another scheme that they will accept. Okay, so we would appreciate it if it was voted for, that we could go back to an all black. It's great, or we could have subtle contrast with some gray, dark gray, and black trim. But we are okay with this color scheme as well, the one we propose with the white and the black.
Should the lentils be painted more of a stone color?
Yes, that would be staff's recommendation to be painted with stone color.
We've been sticking kind of with that rule.
Yeah. I mean, the one
I
is
understand. Yeah, I understand, just for the sake of the scale and contrast and just a refreshing look, we're not in favor of painting lintels a beige or a kind of big stone colors. We wanted to just accentuate the look of it and the Cape Cod kind of feel. That was the only reason. We just weren't comfortable with the look of how the beige paint has kind of turned out in some of these other properties we've been looking at.
Go back to the Secretary of Interior standards, and the interior standards state that stone should be painted to look like stone. Brick should be painted to look like brick. Our guidelines are pretty silent on color selection. There is some language in the 2008 amendment specifically to additions and new structures about selecting colors, schemes that match the surrounding structures or complement surrounding structures. When digging back into the existing guidelines for the existing structures, it didn't see that same language. But I think the spirit is there. If you look at the property in context of what's around it, obviously a big black structure is going to be jarring and has an effect on the historic fabric of the street. I think in the same way, a bright white structure with black details kind of does the same thing. We have seen a few examples of that recently. I don't believe we're proving them, but they're there.
Yeah.
I think for the commission, the question is it in keeping with the character of adjacent structures?
Yeah, I think the intent of that is we don't want any one house to stand out. We want everyone to blend in with each other. And yeah, I've had that conversation with some owners, like, I'm sorry, I know you want to stand out, but you're not supposed to.
Right, we don't wish for this house to stand out. It's just with a limited color selection and the only option of painting is those beige. We're trying to just find one other alternate solution. That's our request. Is there another possibility outside of a beige? So, I mean, we've looked at a lot of colors.
Going to say, I might say something real quick. We have approved a grayish color in the past, like a gray stone, beige stone. I believe I might have sampled, did I have some examples of ones that we've approved for colors?
You did,
Okay.
the beige.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So just from staff's point, we have approved a.
You have approved gray.
Yeah, the grayish color.
And if you look around at structures in the village, there are examples of gray stones, beige stones, whitish stones. I wouldn't say bright, brilliant white, but there are some tones of whitish, especially the Ohio limestone that you see around. There's a palette to select from.
Yeah, I did request specific colors, but it is hard when you go around the neighborhood, you do see examples of this, so that's why we did call out at least 3 of them that are, you know, within walking distance of this property. So I don't mean any disrespect. We're just trying to please client, please you, please the neighborhood. You know, and keep it kind of in the consistency and feel. It could be, we could, you know, we could go with if we didn't want, we could take down the contrast from white and black. Down to that, like a softer gray recommendation and.
I think there is stonework in the village that hasn't been painted, that is of a sufficient color in a tawny brownish, that you could still get sufficient contrast that would still work with us. I am totally supportive of the policy position, whatever you call it, of if it's painted, let's try to paint it to look like a natural material. We've got some horrendous errors lately, one very adjacent to me that has to be corrected.
So in fairness to the applicant, Commissioner McCoy, any thoughts on are you for or against the color scheme as presented?
I would say that the contrast would need to be softened between the color scheme as presented. You know, it looks like the adjacent home is white or light beige. So perhaps the snow bound would not be quite as bright. And then if the lentils then became a dark gray. I mean, I think there are plenty of examples of gray stone around.
And I believe that property you're referencing has green trim. Accents.
But that house has been in front of the commission quite a bit in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it has.
I do prefer a less dark gray on the stone, but otherwise, yeah, a white house with gray trim is fine with me.
Commissioner Thiel, your thoughts? Is it the trim color you want to provide?
Yeah, I have no problem with the white, but I think the trim color does need to be.
So that said, would you like to amend your application to a different color? Do you want to continue that portion of the application? How would you like to proceed?
I would like to amend different color, so if we could describe that color or just follow up with that, or do we have to separate it?
Morgan, how comfortable are you with approving something?
I would be comfortable, I can double check, but we have done that for other applications of someone needing to change their foundation or some color and us approving that color, so I would be comfortable. If the commission is fine with the white colored body.
You're both comfortable as well with? Right. Then we can make the amendment to have that color submitted to staff. Any other questions on the application? All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move on application GB 22-07-024, 44 Stimmel Street, to approve the application as amended by the applicant to submit a slightly more medium toned down version of the gray for the stone trim to staff for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Aye. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for the lengthy application.
Oh, it's
No worries at all.
Good discussion. All right, moving ahead to item number 9, GB-22-07-025, 804 Yeager Street. If you please, when you get ready, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and but the truth.
Yes,
And please state your name for the record.
Brian Straley.
Morgan?
Proposed work description, applicant is proposing to remove existing 25-foot maple tree located in the rear yard. Trees being proposed for removal before it grows too large and poses a risk of nuisance to home and neighboring property. At the past July business meeting, commissioners asked what is the risk or the reasoning for removing the maple tree. Applicant responded stating that the tree is at the property line with their neighbors to the north. The tree is also directly in the middle of the 2 wires running to the home from the alley and is touching the wires currently. The applicant plans to plant a dwarf-sized tree in the rear yard as well as produce gardens and native plantings. Staff does not recommend the removal of the maple tree since there does not appear to be current issues. If removal is approved, staff recommends that a tree be planted at the same location or near the original location of removed tree. Basis of staff recommendation, 3116-13, standards for site improvements, letter A.
Anything else to add?
No, I would just add that our intent is to put more appropriately sized tree there and contribute to the canopy of the area without it extending and taking over our entire yard and that of our neighbors.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Do you know how old that tree is?
I do not.
Trying to figure out whether it was planted as a replacement for a previous big tree that was taken down.
Fair enough.
Doesn't appear to me that the tree is a hazard. It looks like it's a healthy maple. It's not a weak-wooded maple. I think that with certain corrective pruning, I've seen examples where you can reduce the canopy of a tree by 50% and, kind of decrease the shade area and the mass. I mean, the issue with the wires, that's kind of all over the village, that, that's something, because those are the wires that feed the homes, the individual homes. So typically, we do not approve removal of a tree unless it's in decline, and your tree appears to be healthy.
I would agree the tree is healthy. I would say that with trying to maximize the backyard and adding in additional native flowers and additional native plants, it will prohibit their ability to do that in the future.
I feel like you could probably do some pruning on it though and reduce the shade area it's producing. Because that seems to be what the issue is for you, right? Is you want sun area to grow other things.
That is part of it. I would say that, yes, you're absolutely right. It can be pruned for a while, and then I think it's going to become a bigger issue once the tree matures. Maples tend to get to be about 100 feet. Knowing the size of this in the backyard, the scale of the yard itself, I think it will continue to fill that up and we'll only be able to prune so much of it. But yeah, that is an option to continue to prune it. I was just trying to address it early on in its life so that we can put in others that can mature more quickly as well.
But you haven't produced what would go in to replace it.
We haven't. We first wanted to seek approval to remove so that we can put together a formalized plan, knowing that tree canopies in urban areas are critical.
They are.
And
They're
making
very
sure that
critical.
what we put back is sufficient to contributing back to the area.
Morgan, do you know if the previous records show that when this tree was planted, And was it planted because a large tree had been taken down?
I believe I looked into the records and I did not locate, because I had the same
Nothing
idea.
like that? Okay.
But yeah. But I know from Google Street View possibly, you can still kind of see the top of the tree from 2007.
I think I have to stick by my opinion that it's a healthy tree and I don't see that it's causing any damage. And I think that it can be maintained through pruning to reduce, the canopy and still achieve what you want to do.
Is it the position that it can be removed only if it causes damage, or is that the risk of causing damage?
If a tree's in decline and it's dying, it can be removed if it's causing generally my personal guidelines were if it's causing damage, if it's too close to a house and it's pushing in on the foundation, something of that sort, we've approved removal for that. We did approve, I think, removal of trees that got too large that were replaced though, but they weren't a shade tree, they were horn beams on the property line.
I just don't remember any applications we've had in the past where somebody wanted to take out a healthy tree.
Yeah,
If it wasn't in the way of an addition or
yeah, causing.
was causing some kind of foundation issue or limb, struck by lightning and had issues. So to me, I would have to understand what is going back.
Okay.
Just saying a dwarf species, you know, what that is, what kind of height we're gonna get from it, what kind of canopy cover we're gonna get from it. I think in order for myself to approve taking down a healthy tree, we really need to know what the intent is to go back.
Okay.
And if one of the reasons for taking out the tree is to reduce the shade in the yard, well, now we're talking about not putting a shade tree back potentially. So talking about urban canopy, if we don't put a shade tree back, you're not gonna get the canopy, you're gonna be reducing the canopy net reduction. So
That's right.
to me, I would have to understand what tree is being proposed to replace it before I could even rule on that. Otherwise, I'd be in the position of leave it as it is and maintain it moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I go with Commissioner McCoy's position. I agree. I think it can be managed. It doesn't need to be destroyed.
Sounds like you don't have the votes to get the approval. We can continue the application if you want to come back with more information.
Yeah.
Which will keep you on the agenda for the next time around.
Yeah, we'll come back. I think we have good plans that will satisfy the concerns of taking down a coffee tree. We'll just get them more formalized and share them back with the committee or commission.
Sure. Is there a motion to continue?
Item 09, GV 2207-025, 804 Yeager Street, I move to continue.
Second down there. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay, thank you. Moving ahead to item number 10, GV-22-07-026, 214 East Sycamore. If you're ready, will you please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And please state your name for the record.
Sure, Josh Matzinger, CJE Restoration.
Thank you very much.
Proposed work description, applicant is proposing to remove and dispose of existing slate roof and existing EPDM roofs down to wood decking. Proposed to install EcoStar Empire Slate beveled edge with a 7-inch exposure on slopes with GAF slate line shingles on rear slope north facing. Install approximately 104 feet of Owens Corning extra intake vent with additional layer of ice and water guard on upper eaves. Installation includes 15 linear feet of gray valley metal, 24 linear feet of new Cobra roll ridge vent, and gray ridge roll 45 linear feet of gray hip roll and new gray TPO to replace existing EPDM on the porch roof and upper roof. The past July business meeting, commissioners stated that though the rear roof slope is not visible, it's still part of the original home and roof. To install the GAF slate line on the rear slope, roof slope in lieu of the proposed EcoStar will be up for discussion. They stated that the EcoStar was approved as an alternative, but was chosen based on a specific color and was previously approved and installed on the neighboring property, 220 East Sycamore Street. Commissioners asked the applicant to verify the blend color that will be used. The Commission has also asked if the applicant has considered restoring the box gutters or stock gutters that used to be on the property. Staff has located the COA for the EcoStar synthetic slate that was approved as a test case for 220 East Sycamore Street in 2018, COA number 18841. The approved color mix included Manhattan, Midnight, Freeport Federal, and Saranac Smoke. Staff recommends approval with any all clarifications to be submitted to HPO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate with conditions that applicant install the EcoStar Empire Beveled Edge shingle on the north facing slope in lieu of the GAF slate line shingle. Proposed work is consistent with 31-1611, standards for alteration number 6.
Anything else to add?
That was it.
Questions, comments from the commission?
So are we replacing the north side or not?
Yes, so Dr. Maines was requesting that we replace it with the GS slate line to match the rear elevations on the addition from appearance. That was something that was discussed. We actually discussed it with the PVC architect. They proposed.
So the reason to replace that slope with asphalt shingles is to,
Mirror the appearance of
when you're standing in the backyard.
Yes, yeah, so it's a consistent appearance from the backyard.
So we're trying to make the original house look like the addition.
See what you're saying?
Doesn't seem right.
Not for it.
I think with that argument, I think I can sway them to do the ecosystem. Makes sense.
So clarification, you're requesting to amend your application.
Yes.
Does that affect the venting or it?
No, so we would maintain the intake vent, same intake vent.
Are you restoring the box gutters?
So I did pose that to the homeowner and they did not have that. To restore the, it was a stop gutter system originally.
And then just for clarification, Morgan, you mentioned it in your staff report, the blend of the slates. So I know, going back to our business meeting comments, we had a couple different test cases of this.
Yeah.
3 of the 3, one was the preferred. It was the
Freeport Federal, sorry.
Yeah, it was like a blend of 3 colors. That just to make sure that that's the one that we're proposing here.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Motion.
Is that a motion?
Item 10, GV 2207026, 214 East Sycamore Street. I move to approve as amended with the proposed slate on all 4 sides of the roof.
Second.
Or, I shouldn't say slate.
Of the historic structure.
Yeah, all sides of the historic structure.
Said more than 4 sides, but yes, all sides.
All sides. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need help.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a second? Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Real quick, before we jump to item 11, we did have one that we jumped over. Is anybody here for item 3, 74 City Park? All right, hearing none. Item number 11, GV-22-07-027, 757 and 767 Macon Alley. Each of you, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Jonathan O. Peterson, convenience.
Thank you.
Bobby Whitman, owner.
Thank you.
Second.
We did a refresher. Proposed work description, new construction of a 1.5-story addition to connect the two separate homes at 757 and 767 Macon Alley. The addition will be set back from the existing alley. Proposed addition will be wood or board and batten siding. Will include appropriate skirting, trim, and corner boards. The addition addition has a low slope dormer on the rear west elevation and a small dormer with a gable roof to break down the scale of the connection. Exterior will include GAF slate line shingle roofing, Marvin signature ultimate clad windows, metal OG gutters to match existing, and classic rock molded block foundation. This is also for variance recommendations. CC 333225, combined side yard, reduce combined side yard from 16 feet to 7.1 feet. CC 333221, frontage, preserve the existing non-conforming building eve that is 1.1 feet over lot line into right of way. And CC 333226, minimum side yard north, reduce the minimum side yard permitted from 5 feet to 2.1 feet. Following is taken from the unapproved June 1st, 2022 Durham Village Commission hearing minutes. Commissioners had asked the previous hearing what the date of the framed addition. Applicant was able to find more information on the addition and can be dated between 1901 and 1920. Commissioner Foley asked what the back portion of the L shape for 767 Macon Alley is used for. Applicant stated that it's the primary residence. Commissioners are having the issue of attaching a residential property to a garage, but the garage structural is a residential property. Commissioner Ferriel stated that attaching the 767 Macon Alley structure to the historic 757 Macon Alley structure would make the historic structure subservient. Commissioner stated that there are examples of homes being connected, but he doesn't think that there has been occasions where the larger home was so much larger or so much bigger and such an unusual structure that probably should have been built to begin with. Also, that homes are so far apart from the connection would be so hard to hide. Commissioner suggested to send in a 3D rendering to show the colors and depth of the connector addition. Commissioner Field does not recall the comment about the proposed dormer on the front elevation of the connector being inappropriate. He was surprised to see it gone because it broke up the eave line and broke up the connector. Commissioner stated that there's something about the solid wall that makes the connector feel massive. The window above and below gave it more of a vertical element. Commissioner would like to see it as a 1-story addition rather than a 1.5-story. Commissioner Harkey did not have an issue with the original proposed dormer since the addition is on a 1.5-story and typically dormers would sit back further, not be flush with the facade. Commissioner suggested making the eaves subservient as well as not to line them up. They recommended setback the addition as far back as possible from the existing structures. Commissioner Harkey recommended lowering the roof line on the connector. Commissioner Field states that his issue is the scale of the original 767 Macon Alley to create more of an appropriate massing, and cutting the building apart aesthetically might make it work better with the proposed connector piece in historic property. Maybe add architectural elements above the garage door to break it up with massing. Connector of the two separate structures is hard to overcome architecturally. Commissioner suggested setting it back further and coming off the roof of the single-story addition off the rear. At the July business meeting, commissioners asked applicant to include additional 3D rendering to show the overall elevation that includes the rendering and elevations of the two properties that will be connected. The commission stated that they will need to discuss the design further at the hearing. Staff notes that this application may set precedents for the commission to allow a combination of separate lots and connectors between two separate properties. This combination would also be a loss of a single-family home in the neighborhood and redefine the context. Staff would also like to note that the commission was against the removal of historic fabric for the rear single-story addition at 789 City Park Avenue at the past April hearing. Staff does not Staff does not support the design of connecting two separate properties. Staff recommends the commission offers feedback on the design and recommends to continue the application. Basis of staff recommendations 311611, status for alteration. Number 1, every reasonable effort shall be made to use the property for its original intended purpose or to provide a compatible requiring minimal alteration. Number 2, the distinguishing characteristics of the property should not be destroyed. The removal or alteration of any historic fabric or distinctive architectural feature shall be avoided whenever possible. Number 10, whenever possible, a new addition or alteration shall be accomplished so that the future removal will not impair the essential form and integrity of the structure. And then German Village Guidelines, alterations to existing structures, connectors, page 94 and 95. Connectors, particularly between historic buildings, are not encouraged. However, a connector may be approved if the visual impact is minimal and creates an enclosed porch-like effect between two buildings. A visible connector between a historic house and garage is strongly discouraged. Number 2, the location should utilize an existing opening toward the rear of the building to minimize visibility. Number 3, the visual appearance of the connector should resemble an enclosed porch or garden structure achieved through the use of a low-pitched roof and the incorporation of the maximum amount of window space available. And number 4, when connecting to an historic building, the connector should be reversible so it can be removed and the building returned to its original state. Sorry.
Anything else to add?
She covered it off so far.
Questions, comments from the commission? Do you want to start?
Sure. First of all, I would take my comments back from last meeting about alterating the 1987 house. That was an attempt trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. So I've thought about this a lot because it's a problem that we don't deal with a lot in the village. Don't object to connecting any two separate properties. It happens all the time. We have a history of doing it. We have smaller houses that become big ones through combining. I think a connector needs to be an architectural element, as an architectural element, should be subordinate to both of the structures being connected. That has been typically, historically, what we've allowed to happen so that it sits in the background and the two buildings stick out forward. The unique problem here is the 1987 building is predominant in the historical massing that it has, not being historical, but the massing that's historical, and minimal in the architectural dealing and or decoration that it should have, or could have. I'm not saying it's not appropriate for when it was built. The connector also is of sufficient massing relative to both structures, and it's hardly subordinate to either. Okay? The detailing of the connector is also dominant to the 1987 structure and somewhat subordinate to the circa 1900 cottage, but not bad. As an addition to the cottage, it would probably be more acceptable, but not as a connector. So therefore, this is my belief, is it should be architecturally treated as an addition and visually pulled back from the 1987 structure with a minimal element, a gasket probably, making the connection to the 1987 structure with no visual impact whatsoever. So it's not, doesn't read as a connector. It reads as an addition, as is, to me it's fine, but pull.
In addition, still in that same direction.
Same direction, everything, but the physical connection you need between the 87 and that connector is something that you ghost in about 2 feet or so. That you can't see it, it's back in the shadow, it just goes out. Also makes peeling the two apart later in the future if you ever want to separate them, but don't make it a connector. I'm telling you, make it an addition. But what we used to, we used to use the term, the gasket, when we used to talk about gaskets a lot, make this a gasket that's the minimal piece back in there.
To confirm, you would prefer to see it as an addition to the
Cottage.
1987 and gasketed to the historic, correct?
No,
Or
No.
you're saying that.
addition to the cottage.
Okay, I heard that at first, but I wanted to.
And a gasket to the 87, so it doesn't look like it's a connector. It looks like a building that's close. We've got houses that are just far enough apart to be maintained. I think that would be better if it read that way.
So
So you,
I'm sorry.
Just like a gap, a visual
Yeah.
gap between the 87 house and the connect.
Would it be glass? So it's
It,
transparent?
it could be glass, but I don't know if you want to spend the expense
Yeah.
on gas, because it could just be dark gray.
Dark gray, very neutral.
Yeah, I mean, I drew a, can't show this, but. That's just like.
Okay.
Pull back. Your thoughts?
You have the room for it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be losing much square footage.
So you're saying pull it back further on the lot?
Away from the 87 building,
Away, just away from the 87 wall.
so that the historic corner is actually all the corners are exposed.
Yeah, that you'd have an eave sticking out and everything, yeah. Just my thoughts.
Would that allow for a connection on the second floor?
Yeah, that would be part of the
Well,
ghost,
so that part is, it's back.
yeah.
Following up on that and looking at that, with that connection, that gasketed moment to respect the connections that are there would likely be probably about 4 or 5 feet from the current proposed face of the addition, so an additional 4 or 5 feet back.
Back to the west, yeah.
See, and as a landscape architect, I can't help looking at it and saying, can some type of a foreground landscape be created in front of that connection so that it becomes, recedes, it becomes more subservient? I mean, it's all paved now because it was a parking area, but if, something that is a garden could extend from that historic piece, I think that would help.
Additional garden in front.
Yeah. Basically, in front of the addition, the connection.
The current approach, we were keeping the brick parking where it was and the existing porch on the historic structure. There are steps on both the front and the rear of that. So to not alter those rear steps and the landing there, that's what began to limit where we were stopping that car.
So the intent is to keep that parking space.
Correct.
As opposed to turning it into a yard space.
My issue and has always been, it still is, how we're connecting into the older structure, oldest structure. Any addition, we would be loath to cut into that primary historic roof. I wouldn't want to come off the back. I understand that shortest distance between 2 points, a straight line, I get it. But to me, there's plenty of options. And that's point of being reversible, which is something in our guidelines specifically. There's really no way to reverse it. Once we start cutting into roof lines, we start cutting into the side of the building. To me, it goes against our guidance from a lot of our applications in my 10+ years. So I don't want to punish the applicant for having the property to the west, to the left. It's an oddball condition, a ball situation. I know in our guidelines, from the 2008 amendment, the text, which makes me kind of chuckle when I hear it, is before considering addition, explore other options, reiterating interior space, using basement areas, reclothing a larger house. there's not a larger house option. We're making a larger house here, so. I'm not opposed to connecting two structures. To me, it all comes down to how we engage the principal older structure on this lot. And that's where I'm at with it. I think you've done a great job as far as architecturally trying to get it to read better. But to me, it's all about the connection point and how we connect that principle. Everything else I think is there. But if it can be pushed back, if it can be, I'd be willing to sacrifice a bit on our stringency about that original addition off the back of that structure. Maybe having something, redoing the roof of that, swallowing up the side of that, which we typically wouldn't be for. But to me, it's too much to eat up the roof line of the existing structure. That's my take.
I don't know how it works for the floor plan, Anthony, but what if he didn't take the roof over the existing? I don't know how that works with what you got planned for.
We have gasket on both sides?
To me, once you come off the side of that second floor, you're gonna cut into the roof regardless. I think to me, the only way to do it is come off the back of the house, create a bit of a second floor off the back to then bring over and around.
I hate to ask that, is it any worse than putting a dormer up there?
I mean, if you look at the roof line, so I can find a view in here. So on page 8 of the application, I mean, right now, it's almost the 8 to 9 shows the change.
Yeah.
So basically, it's taking a block, dropping it in between the two.
Yep.
If the second floor could kind of wrap, whether it goes over top of, let's say this garage door off the back of there, kind of does an overhang back there, that gets you your second floor across without tying into the first floor. To me, I think it's an architectural issue, and don't let the desired floor plan drive the architecture, let the architecture drive the floor plan.
So what if the connection over the existing cottage was more of a dormer than a gable end? We let dormers all the time.
Coming off the side, you're saying?
Yeah.
But once you have a dormer.
Architect would have to figure out how to fix that, but if that would start to relieve some of your concerns. And I understand your concerns. I really do.
I'd have to see it. I think once you take a dormer and turn it into basically a connection, it ceases to become a dormer.
Unless it still reads as a dormer.
You know, that architectural setup, that's the architecture.
That's why you have architects.
So like the absolute minimum connection would be build a little 3-foot fallway off the older building, just connect it straight over and just bust a new opening at 87. Because the primary purpose of this is to get that upper floor connection. Because whether you go outside from the garage to the older building, it's not that big of a deal. It's that upper level connection that you guys want.
And yeah, that's the primary connection, and then the nature of doing that. Some of the other elements into it.
Like that's like the absolute minimum, like how much more encroachment is allowed.
So I know the applicant can't see it from my screen, but basically coming off the back, if you could create a pathway from here over, allow that corner to read, you don't need a dormer, you can poke into the addition here, and then whatever you do to connect over, you get that, you're leaving that just line intact. That's. Now, I'll sacrifice the roof of that first floor at the rear. No.
Commissioner Hartnett, well, we couldn't see you on drawing your screen. Your connection from the 87 building, is that from the plan north or the plan east?
Where my head's at is coming off the back, we could do what we want back here. Because we allow second floor additions to that kind of stuff, obviously with the right kind of set of architectural features to read. But to me, this corner, maintaining the roof line, maintaining the corner of the building, to me, that's the sacred piece. We want to make sure that's intact. We're not just consuming a corner of the building. So you can pop off and create some kind of pathway over, you can tie into that second floor here, see the rear yard, what you do with that rear roof. We're already creating very low pitch slopes and everything else back there. That's an architectural thing to figure out, but if you can get into there, that allows this to kind of let that breathe. And then you can figure out architecturally how you make the connection from this point to this point or come around. I think it opens up some possibilities, but consuming a corner of the building is something that we typically haven't done in the past. So I'm loath to try to do it now. That allowed first floor connection back there, second floor connection back there. It opens some things up. It's just not as simple as dropping a box in. It just creates a little more architectural fixes.
Yeah, I think holding that corner is a good point. How we do that with exposing that and not running into a valley and a situation with that new addition, that'd be something on us to figure out with that.
To me, part of Commissioner McCoy's comments about her thinking that front section should be kind of a little bit of landscaping to soften it up. If the whole footprint kind of pushes back, you can still maintain the parking area. It creates that extra gap to create more planting. That just helps hide it, and to Ned's point, pushes it back into the shadow. I think it meets a lot of the considerations. But right now, it's just the design is forcing these things that are troublesome to us.
Is it tying together Commissioner Thiel's original comment with the gasket and this? Is the intention to have the connection always appear as an addition off of the historic structure, no matter how it's done, whether that corner is maintained or not, or that was just two separate comments? Okay.
And probably my comment came from the fact that I like the architectural styling you've got of the addition. If you wanted to strip that down and make it less than the 1987 building to make it work with that one, that would be fine too. I just think that's even harder. Maybe not.
To me, trying to match the 87 structure it's going to be difficult because we all agree that it's out of place as it is. So to try to build upon it.
And the connection is so big. Normally we're looking at very short pieces. And, the ideal thing is it's a glass connector. It's all glass and that's it. We've had second floor connectors between two late 1800 houses that there's an apartment on the first floor, but the second two-story house was single residence, and they grabbed bedrooms on the top floor with a glass bridge. But that was so minimal. This is not minimal. It's there. So pick your architecture.
Not to keep belaboring the point, but the architecture's there. I'll say, like to that point, it fits more with the architecture of the existing construction. It wants to be like an L-shaped addition, is what it wants to read as. But it's not being that. And then it's trying to take this architecture and connect it flush up with the 80s architecture. And it doesn't quite talk the same language. So you want to have a break there architecturally. So it's almost like it doesn't know where it wants to be and what it wants to read towards.
I'm thinking of your comment, well, kind of the combined comments of the addition and to not, hurt the historic corner. I know this is now going in the opposite direction. Literally, if the addition was to move forward to read more as a true addition to that cottage off of the side there, coming forward towards the porch, what would the commissioner's thoughts be on that? And in our mind, we're thinking of a clean roof line, which, typically is the result of, a clean design and thought out on the inside. I think the further we get off of that rear and trying to loop around it, it almost seems like too many gymnastics to address one item while hurting, a series of other ones.
So the guidelines say addition should be in the back, should not be as wide, should not cover up as much of the historic visible. And that's, I think that's where Anthony's coming from.
Okay. Pushing that back and keeping that off, but
Trying to make it a true historic type L structure is problematic for that reason. I've got no problem gobbling up the corner of the 87 building. It's the 87 building, it's already got its own issues, but
And there's, and I'm gonna say this. There's been single story cottages, and this tends to be more of a story and a half. But single story cottages on, I think of one on Fifth, but on City Park that have had additions strictly out the back, but have extended beyond the side.
so still keep that connection off the back and then just bring it further off of the historic.
I don't want to design for you. That's not what I want to do. I do know that if we come off the back, you have the primary roof pitch, the addition roof pitch off the second floor would be subservient down from it. You could extrude that piece out a little bit to make the connection over, and that gives you the differentiation between the primary roof. Now, this new roof on top of the first floor addition gives you that length you need to get into the second floor, and then you can do what you want with address any connection concerns elsewhere. Up to some extra second floor space in the principal.
And I think I'm gonna go back to my original comment. When I look at, I know that parking was precious in the village, but I look at the number of spaces in the garage of the newer structure. And I think that I would be in favor of giving up that parking space for green space that would help to disguise that connection and help to establish, I think, more of a presence to the historic cottage.
Yeah, I like the addition. It looks like it should be part of the cottage. It looks subservient. To me, looks good. Just the other issue.
Just think about multiple comments that have been made, if the parking in the front was given up for a larger substantial garden, its current state, does that appease you with all of your concerns? And
It helps. I feel like when I look at that, that connection though is not subservient to the historic structure, that it needs to somehow get downplayed a little more. I'm not sure how to do that.
is it part of it may be the view from this rendering. It is a unique location. From the business meeting when we were asked for, further back, it's very, you actually can get a view showing where the addition is and still have both existing brick structures there. So showing that, the eave line has been brought down, the roof line is brought down. We did, that was a comment at last month's meeting, so we did bring both of those down. 1 foot each respectively, bringing the total, or I'm sorry, the top E was 2 feet down. The low was 1, so it has shrunk substantially. This view may not represent as much as what's showing the sections and the elevations.
And page 12 shows those changes.
Subsurface.
Yeah. ridge line came down, that gutter line came down.
Yeah.
Everything came down.
And the dormer, what?
The dormer's back,
The dormer's back.
and that was, originally had a similar dormer, it was a little bit larger. We had misheard a comment that the dormer should go away, we removed it, but the comment was actually looking at setting the dormer back in a more traditional fashion. In bringing the even roof line down as much as we have, we don't have the room to do a step back dormer. It's the connector's gotten so small at this point that we're almost it's getting that much closer to a one story, and being able to have a window that isn't, at your ankles, that it may not show through in the elevation, but everything has been snugged down kind of as far as it could go with this instance.
I think the dormer's very successful.
So Andy, do you think it would work to expose that historic corner of, if it was literally just this 5 feet wide? If that was the max?
To me, it's just, how do you,
I mean, it would still be in addition to the historic building, still engage that historic roof.
Yeah.
But I guess it would minimize the footprint to basically the core.
I'm still stuck on going right inside that roof. It's just something that, to me, doesn't seem appropriate, but that's me. I think there's other ways to achieve what needs to be done. But free have here things too. I guess for the fairness of the applicant here, it seems to be that's the driving thing. Ned, final thoughts on engaging, as shown, engaging the boulder structure.
I understand where you're coming from, Anthony. I wish the roof was engaged some other way. Maybe that's my one issue. Where it's engaging on the front of the house, that side and everything, that's not big of a deal to me because we've done porches and everything else inside of houses. And covered them up sufficiently, so. Normally, don't like it, but we're losing a window, but I can think of cases where we've done the same thing.
Is it? Yes.
I guess my gut feeling of where it is right now, like if it's just a connector, does it need to be a room? I mean, do you want just a connector at the second floor, or do you want more space? I'm kind of think if you want like the real room, a usable room on the first floor, then your idea of like connecting from the rear and just taking advantage of all that roof space to make a more discreet second floor connection be one way to go. But if it's just going to be a straight shot connector between the old house and the new house, it could be fairly minimal. That it's just the guidelines put it as a porch that got enclosed, a 2-story porch that just got enclosed. Like 5 to 8 feet wide at the most, and at that width, where it's placed right now between one window, it could probably end before you get to the rear corner of the older house.
Commissioner Coyle, thoughts of the connection as it is now?
I think it looks overwhelming, and I actually, I know Ned likes the dormer. To me, the dormer kind of puts importance on it, so. Feel like
In my own response, the thing is so big. I mean, just because of how far it has to go.
yeah,
It helps break
it helps
that,
to break it.
break it up, yeah.
I don't know, I almost feel like if it was a shed door, it'd be better than having.
I like the architectural funkiness
So,
of it, yeah.
okay. It just, it doesn't look subservient to me to the historic cottage.
But the other side, to me, Karen, just, it looks like a little piece of fun,
Yeah,
you know, and kind of a little smile set back there, you know?
that's true. I mean, it's different materials with frame. What are we giving you?
Whiplash. No.
Yeah, and we understand.
No, a lot of good comments. We appreciate all of them.
It's time for that 3D look.
And I think to the comments from last time about the variances, they're pretty much existing or happening because we're combining.
Exactly.
I don't think there's any heartburn on what's being proposed there, so got the thumbs up once the architecture is figured out. So with all that, let's to vote on it, or do you want to continue? Where are you standing at?
Are we able to gauge the commissioner's temperature one last time?
Sure.
As presented,
As presented, and I believe even with the enlarged garden in the front to remove that parking, I think that was something that everybody's comfortable with. The owner has always been pushing to, have as much green space in the front. We were reserved in doing that, just knowing German Village and parking, but
Right.
now that everybody has spoken, we're comfortable offering that.
I think there's still issues about how it addresses the 1887 house. For me, less so the 1900 cottage.
Well, I agree with Karen, there's still something just really big about it. And I don't know if like Ned, your idea of like the hyphen between the 87 house would help, or make the second floor connection at the rear, just with that portion really far back. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is, just like there's just something a little bit too, boom, it's right there. Even though it's set back, it's a different material, it's done everything that you're supposed to do, just something just very big and vertical about it.
Karen?
Well, I think adding green space in front of it, green space, trees helps a lot. And so I think that's a step forward. I'm still feel like it doesn't look transparent enough or small enough or subservient enough.
Sure, with the green space that you could have more window wall.
You could, that's true. You could have more transparency to it.
My position is just that corner, that's where I'm at. Took the whole thing and pushed the whole thing back and made that corner read and fixed the connection, I think I'd be okay with it. To me, it's just how it engaged the corner of that property.
Just take over the rear addition.
And that's my entire struggle.
And I think in doing so, it may take away some of the simplicity of the addition, and even, the introduction of the hyphen connection, having those changes in plane where, if done appropriately, everybody's comfortable with.
In concept, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Gotta see it. Can't say
Yeah.
yes without seeing
No,
something.
agreed. Okay, and I think we'd like to continue until next.
Mr. Chairman, on item BV 2207-027, 757 and 767 Macon Alley, I move to continue.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
I
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hate to do this, but I need to take a 5-minute recess.
That's a great idea.
Was one left?
Yes.
Two. Apologies.
It's one of the triple connector.
I swear the clients seek us out. We were discussing it earlier today at work, but I don't think any projects are just straightforward. I think everybody is excited about things. But
So, totally off the record. Did you get any water in?
collectively, maybe a eighth of a cup.
No, I got a foot.
From one of some of a lot of, even talking to some other people we know, as well as other clients, even with some pumps, there's been a lot of issues.
Sub pump kicked out when the power went off.
I thought the worst part was the air conditioning was off.
Yeah, that's what woke me up. I guess Mark, he had his guys over today and they were down there. So he's in Bond. I texted him and said, hey, 6 inches of rain last night. Power's been out for 5 hours. Do you have any concerns? And he said, oh my God, yeah.
Our house doesn't have a sump either. It's just that middle third is the basement, and then the other two are.
Yeah.
And then here's the corner closest to Northwest John's. Sorry, I didn't get a chance, but I'm guessing it might even just be the downspout that's putting actual.
Yeah. Raph and Katie said that they had some water coming in. There wasn't anything bad.
All right. Back early. We're back on the record. Item number 12 is the first conceptual application. It is item GV-22-07-028, 551-555 City Park Avenue and 552 South Pearl Street. Let the record show the applicant is still on the record.
Proposed work description, proposed connectors, proposed connections between 555 City Park Avenue and 551 City Park Avenue, as well as between 555 City Park Avenue and 552 South Pearl Street, combine 3 separate properties into one single-family home. Connectors will be wood framed with flat roofs, Dutch lap siding to match dimensions of the existing 6-inch Dutch lap siding on 551 City Park Avenue Cottage, which will be replaced in kind. Approved Martin windows from GVC approved windows list. Paint color to match final selection of paint color for 551 City Park Cottage. 55 City Park alterations, remove existing old World Bazaar entry and bay window additions and restore historical masonry openings. New metal and glass openings and entryway are proposed. Repair masonry is required on all elevations. Replace the old World Bazaar storefront and entry on South Pearl Street with historical warehouse doors that will act as garage doors. 3 shed dormers are proposed for the middle section of the building. Replace damaged slate roof with new raised seam metal roof, 18 inches space seams. New masonry openings are proposed on the north facade of the building, facing the interior of the parcel. Metal glass windows and doors proposed for these openings. Change of use from commercial to residential. Renovation of the interior for residential use. Step back single-story connectors proposed between this building and the two adjacent buildings to the north. Remove masonry walls and bench in the right of way in front of the building on City Park Avenue. 551 City Park Avenue alterations, replace all historical siding and trim with new to match. Replace windows with new Morgan windows from improved windows list. Maintaining all existing opening locations on the City Park facade, including dormers. Remove rear additions made over the years to the original structure. New slate roof proposed. Renovation, no problem. Renovation to the interior. Addition to the rear of the original structure, including a screen porch. Paint color to be determined. For 552 South Pearl alterations, repair existing masonry as required, all elevations. Repair existing slate roof. Replace windows with new Morgan windows from the improved windows list. Maintaining all existing openings on the north and south elevations. New front entry door selected from historical style. Renovation of interior. Step back single-story connector to 555 City Park Avenue. Maintain off-street parking spot. Proposed iron fence along South Pearl Street, including gate for parking spot, and a new 4-panel solid wood door. Variance recommendations for this project. CC 333218D, lot coverage, to increase permitted lot coverage from 50% to 60.5%. CC 333221, front yard setback, City Park, to reduce the front yard setback from 10 feet to 0 feet, which is existing. CC 333226, minimum side yard north, to reduce the minimum side yard permitted from 5 feet to 0 feet. CC 333226, minimum side yard south, to reduce the minimum side yard permitted from 5 feet to 0 feet. CC 333225, combined side yard, to reduce the combined side yards required from 12.5 feet to 0 feet. And 333227, required rear yard, to reduce the required rear yard from 3,162 square feet, which is 25% of lot area, to 961.15 square feet, which is 7.6% of lot area. And 339111, voluntary discontinuance of non-conforming use. Approval will be required, but will need to confirm with BZA. All properties included in this application are contributing structures that include 2 residential, 1 commercial building. The commercial building has remained such since construction in 1901. The building was originally a trolley barn, which converted to a grocery warehouse, and then the Old World Bazaar in 1968. The combination and connection of these 3 buildings will be the loss of 2 single-family dwellings to the neighborhood. At the past July business meeting, commissioners requested that a demolition plan be included with the application. They asked if applicant could clarify if the sign is being removed from the facade and to identify the square footage of each property, to help identify the increase over 60% for the lot coverage. Applicant has supplied that information. The existing lot coverage for the property is 56.7%, with proposed building coverage to be 60.5%. This change in coverage will include 2 proposed first floor open covered porches. Since there will be an attached garage added to the rear of 555 City Park, there will need to be further discussion of extending the curb cut on Pearl Street. Commissioners did request a 3D elevation rendering of the 2 proposed connectors. Staff does not support the design of connecting the 3 separate historical properties to make a single-family dwelling. Staff recommends the commission show offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal to review at a future GBC meeting. Basis of staff recommendation is 311611, standards for alteration number 1, 2, 4, and 10, and German Village guidelines alterations to existing structures, connectors, pages 94 through 95, number 2, 3, 4, and German Village guidelines, new buildings, garages, now buildings, page 113, number 2, no action required.
What was yours?
So we're all well aware of the building and sort of its lifespan, starting as the original trolley house. There was a car wash at some point. We've included the photos there. That was in the 1950s, prior to becoming the Old World Bazaar. First for 24 years. And then most recently the law office. So the new owner is enthusiastic about bringing this in, with it being in the residential, zoning area, to bring this back, or not back to, but convert it to a residence that's contributing to the neighborhood. And also understanding that, the state of all 3 of the buildings, they're nearing a point of almost disrepair. just over the lifespan in previous owners. So they're, they're aware of that. They're still very enthusiastic about the project. And being able to restore these to be a very contributing piece of German Village.
Questions, comments from the commission?
I've got concerns about what's historic and what's not historic. Specifically, probably on the trolley work. And we know what it is now. We know what it was when it was a car wash, which some of that stuff is reflected on the city park side in the masonry. And obviously, there must have been another window, probably, there's been 3 windows on the south side of that facade that we can tell. 2 we know, one's existing, one we got a picture of what it was like before, the third one we don't know. And we've always talked about doing restoration as a conjecture of what was, but not sure. And we've been afraid to go there. So that being said, I'm not sure I know what's appropriate for what to do and what not to do. I guess I'm asking for more documentation as to what you're basing your design decisions on.
A lot of it is from, primarily the material that we've submitted with, the photo of the car wash that had shown prior to being the car wash. That was the car wash is the oldest photo and example that we have. So knowing that there was a ghosted in arched window at some point before that, and knowing with the other trolley barns, both the neighboring one on High Street, as well as some of the other ones from that time frame and of that same trolley line, we can assume, arch top window there, likely a second arch top opening where the Old World Bazaar Bay is, whether that was a door or window, we haven't been able to track down yet. There's nothing, going up in the attic and in the second floor space there, we've, without doing any demo to the Old World Bazaar Bay, we haven't been able to find out anything additional on that opening. So some of it is just what are other historic buildings similar to this? What could we gather that it may have been? Some of the options that we've included are variations on, what period is this most historic, or most, relevant to restore back to. So the Old World Bazaar, the small bay window next to the bay opening, it's a very similar sized opening to what was existing during the car wash, but it, for whatever reason, it was moved at that point. So it, balancing between, I don't think many people would agree that as the car wash, it was its most historic point, so not restoring to that, but respecting what openings have been there. And then, the nature of this one of a kind, large, previous commercial building, how can we turn that into a functional residence?
So I would say maybe not most historic would not be the term I would use, probably not the most romantic is the term I would use.
Technically, you should only restore it to what can be documented. So with that one historic photo of the car wash, so showing the large garage door and the smaller industrial window, like you could restore those 2 openings on the basis that I have a historic photo. At one point, it looked like this.
Okay.
Everything else is just conjecture. It's like, unless you actually find evidence, physical evidence of you could restore that little window with the arch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that little bit of lintel, that soldier course lintel, what's that for? It would somehow have to get incorporated into that.
That was from the one of the car wash.
The car wash.
Yeah.
Car wash one. So yeah, it's an interesting
But I know when we do tax
Facade,
credit projects, yeah, they're like, unless you have documentation of what it looked like,
Okay.
no conjecture. But we're trying to figure out like what might have looked like when it was a trolley barn.
Yeah, we've been to the society, we've been to the library, any archives online that we found documentation for probably every other trolley barn around Columbus,
But not that one.
with the exception of this. So the car wash is so far the oldest known example.
I don't know what effort you want to make or anything like that, but you might look for some of the families that lived across the street.
We
Contact their descendants and see if they've got random family pictures that just happen to be in the background.
Aside from the city park facade of the trolley barn.
I would say the same for the Pearl Outlet too, really. Yeah.
The one photo in the bottom left is from High Street, looking over what's currently that event space parking lot, with the other trolley barn on the left, outside of it, the historic. But so from what we can tell in that photo, it kind of looks like there were overhead doors at some point. In reading some of the historic articles, the back of the trolley barn was likely open. One of the older Sanborn maps noted that the back of it was I believe it's noted as cast iron on the back, so whether it was just an open gate. Yeah, they noted it's ironclad in the 1901 map with the South Pearl facade. And then I believe the German village behind the bricks, one of the stories noted that a kid and his friends used to sneak under the gate overnight and move the mechanism, the car wash mechanism back and forth. So we're chasing a lot of those stories and those photos, but yeah, so far everything is primarily focused on the change those things are.
The only other concern I have is the lot coverage.
I believe right now we were at 56% coverage, just, the trolley barn is essentially 100% of that lot. The other ones make up a much smaller portion of that.
I would make that point.
Is your concern is with increasing any amount over it? From what is existing?
50, 55 has been kind of in a not too distant past been the rule. And there's been a feeling of going over that was not where we wanted to lose open space.
And I believe the enclosed connection, City Park side, that in our proposal of removing the older non-historic additions that are on the back of that, the proposed addition is the same square footage within, I believe it's 2 or 3 feet. So that's something for us to take into consideration.
Photos of those additions to be removed.
They might show, we can get some more detail, but on page, the photo sheet showing the interior lots just before the historic ones, you can see a good amount of that addition. Down 2 more pages.
Green building.
Yeah, it's the green off the back.
Looks kind of old.
So those ones are, in looking at it without doing any demo, but they're on a It's not a rubble foundation like the original historic cottage in the front. It's an older block addition. And in looking at the Sanborn maps, those didn't exist during those periods.
So on the photo on page 9,
Yeah.
that one, so the window that's on the left portion, is that on a portion of the house that's remaining?
Yes, that's the rear of.
So it's only that little vestibule and that one-story addition.
Correct.
I guess my only concern about this is like, I have no objection to the trolley barn becoming a house. It's really cool. And even the Pearl Street house becoming the guest house seems fine. It's what happens to this other house. What happened to the other applications, like, oh, the back just got absorbed. So I almost want to sort of, like, if we all agree that the rear additions are gone, then that old historic corner, it could be retained and you just had the connector cross that 3-foot gap.
Yeah, the connector connecting the trolley barn.
Barn to
then
the other,
Yeah, we do have the elevation, and because of the change of that, we are going to keep that lower, not breaking any of
Right, but
those historic corners.
but the historic corner that you're exposing is just all engulfed in additions.
Correct.
So it's just like, okay, the trolley barn being renovated is nice and pure, it's on the inside. That Pearl Street house, same thing, nice and pure, it's on the inside of them. This front house then doesn't get the same treatment. And like, I could almost say, yeah, I'm fine with all of it, if we just were able to keep that historic cottage sort of intact as well.
Yeah, we can look at confirming those details to address.
It's like, how big of a bathroom do you really need? How big of a closet? Can it just fit in the original massing?
So on the rear of 551, which I guess originally was 549, 551, look at the Sanborn map from the 21 to 51 Sanborn map, last page application. You got the side-by-side duplex. There's a 1-floor bump out on the back. You go back to that photo on page 9. You look at kind of how you have the leg that comes out the back, and there's a little piece right there.
That part of that will bump out?
You do some investigation of the foundation, that might be the remaining part of that little bump out, which would make that historic component. How historic, and how much we want to maintain is a discussion for the commission, but I want to identify what that is. Is it the original piece, or is that just originally torn down and put a new foundation up? Addition there.
We can look at that. Currently, when you walk in to that small part that you're referring to, almost in an at-grade vestibule, it's almost like a split entry where you go down to the cellar or up into then the rear of that historic cottage.
My looking at the Sanborn map, it's got the dashed line across that back edge. Probably there's an open porch or something at the time. Might have been enclosed, but investigation is all we need to identify. And I'd say to the comment about connecting the city park duplex to the original duplex to the trolley barn. Different condition than the last application because it's only a small sliver. So to me, leaving that front corner exposed, connected through, I have no problem with that.
No problem with how it's currently shown. Or at least the the nature of where it's connecting, setback from.
The front edge of that connection, I got no problem with. I'm little, I guess I'm heartburn about that connection piece wrapping the corner and again gobbling up that whole corner.
Yeah, he's lost the purity of having the historic building and a nice discrete connector that's present on the full street building.
One of the concerns we've had on other applications is once something becomes interior space, that wall's gonna go away. And looking at plans on page 15 of the application, that's what's happening. Like the corner's being taken and it's just blowing it up, it's wide open. Keeping that corner there and that maintains that historic nature
The
of it.
fact that this whole south side of that house has been demoed out.
Yeah.
I agree.
And while we're talking about that, I guess on the Pearl Street house, where the den connector is, if that wall could just be pulled back or somehow indented at the
whole
Pearl Street house, just
separation.
to expose that corner.
To me, honestly, if it's 3 feet, if we can just keep that connection as small as possible, make it a little corridor or something through there, as opposed to knocking out the entire wall of that house, and just making this one big giant open floor plan. To me, that's the ideal condition.
You're back in City Park.
Yeah, back at City Park. I haven't looked at.
Yeah, I think that's nobody would argue with that comment that we already have that rear connection. It's there, you're looking at is just space that's grown in the closet.
I guess by not blowing out so much of the existing wall, if it ever goes back to being a separate building again, you don't have to rebuild quite as much.
What's the difference in first floor elevation between the two structures on City Park?
2 to 2.5 feet. We only had the final survey, the point cloud after this was submitted, but the change in elevation is intended to be at that connection. Not affecting either of the existing buildings.
Not sure how you get past, how you get past the lot coverage unless somehow the trolley barn, I mean, once you combine all those properties.
Yeah, even if there's no additional square footage.
Footage.
63%.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, is there some way that,
I guess it would just be the grandfathered.
Yeah.
Existing.
Yeah.
condition.
is an
Exactly.
existing condition, but it's gonna affect the total unless it's structured some way in the calculation
Unless you look at it as three separate properties and 50% in
of,
the barns.
yeah. I guess you have to write the barn off and say, make sure that the other two properties fall under that.
Are there any questions on the proposed openings in the northern side, facing the interior courtyard on the trolley barn? So they're proposed to be, respectful of the building between the existing structural bays that are visible on the outside in the brick detailing, so that none of those are affected.
And there never were any openings, right? These are all new.
There are currently two openings there existing. One is an egress door, very close to where we're doing a proposed connection to South Pearl. And then there's also a set of French doors about mid-lot. I think they definitely proposed adding another set of doors on that facade. I forget if it was ever.
No, not really.
If it was ever voted
Significant
on, yeah.
architecture.
Yeah, there's never been any significant amendments.
No, in that case, I actually don't have any issues with the new openings.
Oh, I apologize. At the city park location within that first bay, about 10 feet back, you can see that there were two old openings that, ghosted in. They look to be the same size as the car wash block window on the front. So those were likely put in there. And you can still see the one from the southern neighbor. It's, it's far enough in front of that neighbor's house to be able to see.
So is one of them still visible, the blocked opening still gonna be visible from the street? Trying to figure out how far back that connector is sitting at.
So in looking at the plan where that small section mark is in that front office room,
Okay,
right now you can see a ghost
at that.
infill window.
So it's in the master closet.
What was that?
It's in the master closet right now.
Oh, no, sorry, not on that. I was talking about the trolley building. The city park, I don't believe there are any openings on that.
On that
facade.
side.
Yeah, I think.
So to me, that was like the perfect, if there was a door there, the perfect location to break over into that little 3-foot slot, put the stairs in that you need to make the 2-foot differential.
Yeah, I believe it's all consistent. Siding there, nothing that's been infilled, but we can look at that as well.
So does it have pilasters on that north wall?
Yeah, there's pilasters on the north and the south.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're only on the exterior. And there's larger pilasters on the South Pearl elevation, but there are not any on the city park. But the bays are all still the same arching.
So in the living room, dining room area, you've taken out the whole wall from basically pilaster to pilaster.
I believe, I believe we left. Yeah, we left, I believe it's 8 to 12 inches on the edge of that pilaster to let that original wall.
Okay, so you just put a storefront wall.
Correct.
No, I'm just wondering if that's a better solution to carry that all the way along. Rather than just cut masonry openings in, just take the whole wall out and replace it.
Okay. It just,
Rather than the punched openings? Just
Yeah.
storefront all the way down.
Yeah. And you could treat the glazing differently, whatever you needed to do with it, but just have the same.
I'll make one observation. If, when you get into any kind of investigation demolition, if you look at the original 1891 Sanborn map, there is a 1.5 story structure, the very up to the property line on City Park. It extends back roughly halfway, a little more halfway, back the depth of the duplex in 551, and they have some 1-story additions, if you will, off the back of that. If you look at where your pilasters start, they very interestingly start about that same location. So the fact that there's no pilasters on the front elevation of City Park kind of has me thinking that maybe that front
Could have
portion
been
might be the original from 1891. So look at the foundations and where those pilasters are and how it all ties together. You see differentiation there. It may be identifying that's the oldest part of the entire structure.
okay. Yeah, I believe that right now it's a stone foundation. I believe it's 3 brick at the floor elevation at some point that step back. It does carry from Pearl to City Park, but that may have been a detail that they duplicated. We can look at.
You may be able to see something in the joists or something, or if it's up to pour concrete, if there's anything inside, up in the rafters. Just a thought. If you said there was an arched opening somewhere up on that portion, may have been an old window from an old house that got bricked up when it became a trolley barn, which may explain that arched window front of the house or front of the barn. Then that garage door may have been a whole new opening that got cut in for the trolleys when if it got converted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what we could tell, the trolleys, the line ended at, it came in through the South Pearl elevation and ended at, within the City Park boundary of it. That it didn't continue through as a pass through. But we can look, keep on covering.
But that may speak to what historically was there versus creating a trolley barn opening if we identify that it really wasn't.
Yeah, we were able to see some items inside. There's a pretty big vestibule right now that might be blocking a little bit more, hidden information with every bit. Are there any questions or concerns with the proposed roof work currently on the City Park side? The double is slate on the front, 2 slate dormers, and then the back of that historic structure and the addition are asphalt. We're proposing that the original historic structure would all be repaired or new slate. And then any addition to that would be differentiated and likely. Then on the South Pearl side, that small cottage, we incorrectly listed it as slate in our write-up. It's an asphalt shingle that's also at the end of its life. That's also being proposed as being slate. And then for the trolley bar, it is the original slate roof from the 1900s, 1891, maybe its oldest. That's being proposed to be a standing seam metal roof.
I've got no problem with the concept of those roofing materials.
Okay.
No. I do find it curious on the Sanborns, you didn't have a gabled end. Actually, what their textual term for that type of roof is.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there is a photo online on Passport for Columbus neighborhoods. There's a photo of them actually adding the roofing on to make it a gable end.
Okay, the extension.
Yeah.
So that explains that shell line, the spring line.
Yeah, it looks like there was some point went from a hip roof to a gabled end, and then that gabled end got extended and beefed up. So when you're looking at putting that metal roof back, it puts a thought into what you want to do. You want to pull it back to the original gabled end. You want to keep it at the existing gabled end, or you want to switch it. You really can't switch it back to a hip, but you take brick down.
With that, one of the photos, the one from High Street, you can almost see an old roof vent on the top. When you look at the roof from above, you can see that it likely had, I think it was 4 other ones, and then they follow the cadence of the pilasters. But you can see from above where those old ones have been patched in.
Talking about the ventilators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That same photo, and it's almost giving us the most amount of info, but it is the grainiest. It looked like there was a vent louver on that South Pearl elevation of the trolley. It's hard to make out.
Yeah.
But with that, the 2 triangular vents that are on the trolley bar now, they're not functioning. They're just stuck on to the face of it.
It's like it.
If you look at the aerial photos, you can see the color splotches where it got patched.
Yeah. And while we're on the roof, we also propose there's I guess we'll call it a mechanical penthouse on the trolley now that we're proposing removing and getting that equipment out of there. But then in that same vein, we're proposing 4 interior dormers. Again, those follow the cadence of those pilasters. They face internally to the shared lot, courtyard, but not visible from any of the other neighboring streets. And those we would likely pull those back from, the original brick face. Detail those accordingly.
Put skylight ventilators back instead.
We're open to everything that's early, but yeah, it's neat to dig into the history of the building.
Interesting. It hips at both ends.
Another open question, the garage item on South Pearl. Were there any comments or questions on proposed? And at one point, there would have been a curb cut there for those trolley lines to get in, but is there any concern putting that back in? Right now, the street, the two spots of the street in front of the trolley barn, both on city parking and South Pearl, are no parking loading zones, so we're not taking away any parking.
There. You got a garage over here, a drive over here, too short for a parking spot. See, typically, we don't allow curb cuts unless there's evidence of there being a curb cut in the past. Trolley barn, see, there is evidence of that. And it's not taking away any street parking because there's already no parking. I think some of the concern meeting was attached garage. But if it was trolley barn and you had openings,
That's like that house on Mohawk Street where they just put the garage in the basement. It's in the volume of the building. It's not attached.
and in this
Got
case,
20 cars in it.
in this case, you had vehicle entrances here historically, so.
Where we welcome any feedback on, how we treat that curb, whether it's, recessed sandstone or, everything related to the brick there. As far as, if it were two separate doors and breaking the curb cut to reduce those versus, or in the opposite route, doing it as a single larger door to reduce the width of that curb cut instead of the two separate ones, which makes a few feet of difference in that curb cut.
My opinion, I think you take it from the existing, one edge of the existing curb cut to the other and just,
Okay.
it would be nice to have a sandstone inset just to historically read if there was a curb here at one point in time.
I think you gotta do that.
I would think it'd be neat if we identified, if you could figure out where those original streetcar entrances were. Something in the patterning of the brick to kind of architecturally mirror where those rail lines would have come through. I think that'd be a neat detail. I'm not saying required, but it'd be neat to have some evidence. Yeah. There.
Have you ascertained any existing partitioning inside that trolley barn?
Nothing that we've seen. There are a lot of partitions inside, but very few, if any, of the inside faces of the exterior walls are furred out or anything. It's all exposed brick.
And you said the Pearl Alley side had a wrought iron facade or something you said you thought?
In one of the Sanborns, it's noted that the 1901 just says ironclad on that end. So we were scratching our head on what was that, the gate, were they, larger operable iron doors?
I could see I really could see the whole end just being open and never closed.
When it was the original?
When it was the trolley barn, yeah, they just throw them in there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have heated it.
Telling Savvy when you get to that foundation, if there's a foundation wall, I'm guessing there's probably not. If there's no evidence of any foundation underneath there, they're probably open, like you said.
Yeah. That would be a good indicator, you're right.
But Sanborn does says ironclad, and maybe they had some big swinging metal doors.
Yeah, could have been.
Okay, I think you guys have answered, everybody's answered a lot of great questions, and from our end, the biggest concerns that we're hearing is a little bit more information on the trolley barn city park facade. And looking at those connectors to try and, reduce those as much as we can, both for respect to the existing cottages and down the road for any lot coverage variances.
Oh, that Frost Street house on the Sanborn maps had a huge long additions going into the back and then connecting to the trolley barn. At one point, the street house was connected to the trolley.
1901s.
Yeah, the one that has the ironclad.
Steam.
Renovator.
Here. Yeah. Interesting to see where it comes out of this. Anything else you need from us?
No, I think that's all very helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, no action needed. That was conceptual. Last item, GB-22-07-029, 658 South Grant. If you'll raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
John Nicholson.
Proposed work description. Applicant is proposing the expansion of existing dormer in addition of a symmetrical dormer on the opposite side of the home. New dormers to allow for proper minimum ceiling heights on second floor. Dormer will be held back from the street facade and will step back from the side of the home. Existing house footprint will remain unchanged and no variances will be required for the project. The past July business meeting, Commissioners asked preservation staff to look at the past comments made by commission about the dormer on the Mohawk property that was used as an example. Staff has included the information within the materials. Staff has located the information for the dormer on 625 Mohawk Street. South facing dormer on the property was constructed in 1990 without approval or permits and was denied when seen by the commission. It was then appealed in 1991 and 1992. 1992 was then approved due to economic hardship and with a revised design. Staff could not locate a COA for the north facing dormer. Staff recommends the commission should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future GVC meeting. No action is required.
Anything else you want to add?
Not at this moment. I'll respond to questions if.
Alrighty.
So you're saying that existing dormer was built even after it was denied?
Yeah, so
Appealed based on economic hardship to take it down?
Yeah, the north one was there already and the south one was built in 1990. And since it was already constructed, it was just revised to be minimized from the front.
Had some interesting owners. We'll just leave it that way.
Okay, so I'm missing something. So on the as-built north elevation, there is no dormer.
Correct.
So it's just the south elevation, the single dormer was added on its own.
No, her comments were about the house. that was shown as a
Those
residential.
comments were about the examples they cited as precedent.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But I don't, 753, the 753 referenced Mohawk.
I could not find a COA for that, so that was
Okay.
probably constructed maybe in the 60s.
So I think that was our precedent reference for an extreme situation of exceeding your length dormer length to recommended or allowed length. And we have a reduced percentage of length. Our proposal than 753 Mohawk.
Yeah, I could not locate a COA for either dormers, either side. that property. But I will say for that property, 753, there was an addition to the back and rear in 1970, and I think dormers were indicated of being there on the property. So it has to be for
For the commission.
Did we know, I'm sorry, can I speak freely?
Sure, go ahead.
Did we note in our submittal that we are trying to eradicate some non-conforming ceiling height issues in bathroom floor area, ceiling height, bedroom ceiling height area? Sure, but that's the kind of impetus for the dormer expansions. This
You got 6'6",
6'6".
quarter and a half.
Yeah, and
Then you got 6'11" back in the rear bathroom.
and they are now having 3 children there, 3 small children. So it's getting difficult as they get larger.
I think my problem with the second floor is that you need that long dormer, not for the bedroom ceiling heights, but for that hallway. Because, yeah, traditionally on these floors, like the hallway would have been down the middle where the ceiling is tallest, and then the extreme edges of the rooms would just be at the shorter level. Everybody wants
I
bigger
think that
bedrooms.
was, the position of the hallway was preservation of the stair, the vertical circulation element, and also a little bit of economy in the plumbing stack location. It's not subdividing, well, and the footprint area, but I'm a little bit late to the game on this too. I'm representing the project architect as the architect of record. And so I won't be offended by any design criticism.
So one of the issues that will come up, so for early application about egress out of the bedrooms, having enough window space, looking at as proposed, showing 3 windows, I guess the question is any one of those going to be large enough for egress? Because whereas the existing layout is existing grandfathered, once you start monkeying with the layout, now it's going to trigger code.
Yeah, I would think, knowing how we do things, that we are going to be checking the box for egress line area.
So
Oh, I see one of the windows has actually got E on it.
that's what these answer. So that's why we have that back dormer there is the egress from that back bedroom.
Yes.
So you're getting rid of the dormer over the front door.
Dormer in the front door kind of goes away, kind of gets replaced by the long dormer.
Yeah, like, architecture, the long dormer just doesn't respect the first floor at all.
there a requirement to have the landing at the top of the stairs before you can have a door?
Yeah, you're not supposed to have a door open, riser.
Depending on the swing of the door.
So look, I'm just looking at the plan on page 6. And it looks like the door swing is what's driving the length of the dormer to the front of the house.
So that door could just open out onto the landing.
Well, I mean, even if you slide the door
Oh, I see.
up to where the landing is, you can still swing into the room.
Yeah.
And get rid of that extension. I'm just trying to find a way to minimize the dormers to minimize the impact.
I mean, the other way to do it is that instead of having a bedroom in the middle of the house, put the office in the middle of the house and everybody just walks through the office to get to the bedrooms at the ends.
But you still need to have dormers for the bedrooms because you gotta get an egress window in there. Because the current one is just a small little arch.
Right. But you might be able to get two small dormers. And then a smaller middle one just to.
Yeah.
At the top of the stair. But I'm thinking that's like the main problem with this, it's because it's a hall.
Yes.
Vacuum. So we can get rid of that hallway, minimize it.
Basically doing some smaller dormers at the bedroom ends to get that egress window.
So you can just use the office as a common area that we walk through to get from one end to the other.
I think that they're trying to create, I would imagine they tried to create a separation so that you could have children in the sleeping quarters and then still continue adult-based work or activity. I don't know if this is truly an office or TV room, lounge, hangout, but it appears to diagrammatically suggest a little bit of public-private separation with the stair.
I originally thought that was gonna be a master's bedroom, but it's not labeled a master bedroom.
The center block, like a master, no, I think this
So
is.
the office,
Yeah.
the office seemed like that's where the
It's a
master
good
bedroom.
proposed first floor.
But I guess they're minimizing it by having just.
It's interesting because there's supposedly 3 children in the house and 2 adults.
Yes.
And I
Kids are
see,
sharing.
2 bedrooms.
All 3 of the kids are sharing for now.
Yeah. Well, they're sharing now.
Yeah.
With,
Unless they found a way to get basement bedrooms in the house.
I mean, there is some economy for this owner in the singular form as opposed to 2 dormers, introducing 2 more perimeter walls, 2 more instances of rake trim, flashing. I think there are loads of precedents, and it certainly is architecturally much more sensitive than 753. With two banks of the 4 windows divided by the 1. We've got a nicely proportioned subdivision of windows to wall area. Not that we want to base our architecture, we're better than the bad, but and it's certain, I think the lap siding is superior facade treatment than the board and batten 625. But I guess that's an opinion. And the nice thing is there appears to be the side yard separation between these 2 properties is, I guess, for the village, kind of significant compared to the north yard separation, so it could handle visually that length proportionally, in my opinion. this would have not been, this would not be the first plan too, so there was, sure, a couple months of diagramming and analysis to come up with this solution before we would submit an application and come down.
The rule on the the length of the dormer is, what is it? It's
I think it's 50%.
percent, which this guy is. So, I
I
mean,
did where the primary form is 60%, 59 point something. And then if we add the second one, I didn't, when I was given the plans to review, I didn't immediately notice the portion of dormer to the east. Creates the bedroom egress form. At least we're not joining it to the neighboring property.
yeah, it seems like if there's something that can be done to reduce the length of the dormer.
Oh, we can introduce two gable ends and a secondary piece between. This is just this is the economical solution for this couple. We certainly, if forced, can enhance the detailing and sync with. But we're still going to be at the same length, so we'll be coming back for that. And if we do introduce the gable to similar gable, the pitch is going to be similar to the dormer that's there now. Pitch is going to be very low. And awkward looking, not as big a singular form. Asking for a little grace in the length over a singular shed form is a little bit less offensive than two shallow gables with the.
Yeah, I'd have to say, I don't think the existing gable's very attractive.
No. Yeah. And in context, the shed is it's a certainly unprecedented form we see all over the village.
So if the door to the office was a barn door, I don't even know if you could do this, a barn door on the interior of the office, couldn't you move, the opening be moved closer to the top of the stairs and you could reduce the length of the dormer?
I think you still wouldn't have the head height coming out of that door.
But it would reduce the length.
The length.
Yeah,
The-
by like 4 feet.
Well, the dormer length, I don't think you would go completely away. I think what you end up with is kind of when you look at the south elevation, you got that dormer piece that's kind of pushed back. So you got the length, the big mass length, and the end piece pushes back. This portion is just going to end up pushing back. You're still going to have the linear length, it just won't be monolithic.
Just so long.
I mean, if you have a cut section through there, you'd see it clear.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the window heights. You try to put a door right here, you're going to be poking out of the roof.
Yeah.
It's the small cottage problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only has room for so much space.
Dormer it, you lift it. You end up with-
Best to figure that out before you purchase.
Yeah.
You said that.
That goes back to the amendment, 2008 amendment, the guidelines on additions. Before considering addition, explore other options such as rearranging interior space using basements or relocating a larger house. Which in today's economy isn't necessarily the best solution, which then
Right.
takes the applicant down
Oh,
the
it's,
hardship rate.
right. It's not plausible for relocation.
And the hardship route is not something that we hear at the first blush. It requires a hearing, a rejection, and upon appeal.
Okay.
So
I don't think having not enough space is a hardship, right?
I'm not saying it is.
Okay.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying maybe there's a case to be made that with the housing market the way it is, that there's is it a hardship? I can't say. It's just,
It's subjective. We don't know.
Yeah, it's,
They're financial, you don't submit financial data. You know, income.
I would venture that what this house could sell for would buy a whole lot bigger house someplace else.
could make the case that then you could live in something cheap versus where you can get something cheaper and bigger. I'm not advocating either way.
Paul Revere had 14 kids in this bound space too.
Yeah,
So
But that's-
three kids
yes,
would be no problem.
yeah, I mean, some of our houses were packed with kids.
I don't think we see a clear answer. I
Right.
think it's just the question is architecturally, is there anything that can be done to minimize the impact of
The length.
big, long
Okay.
dormers? Can something be done with the interior arrangement? Instead of having an office at the front, maybe it's better in the front, better in the back, and get some of those gable and dormers, something smaller. So it breaks up the massing, maybe get 3 in there.
If they went forward with a formal application review, would they be denied?
As is,
Uh-huh.
I would vote no.
I would vote no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's setting big precedent to violate
I think the
guidelines.
precedent for us is that we have denied similar applications in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the last dormer one, I think I approved because they were small.
So
Thank you.
so increasing the architectural detail or form to reduce the impact of length and massing would be viewed as more favorable outcome.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Bring it into the standards of the guidelines.
I think the length will always exceed the standard, so there will be some. I don't know, as you can see, I'm gonna get thrown into the redesign, so.
I'm
I'll
not,
go home.
I'm not saying that we can fit 3 short dormers, if it's the overall length is if you add it up as the same,
Uh,
having three separates may visually soften it enough to get approval.
Okay,
Can't say without seeing it, because don't know what they need to be.
so you're trying, do you have a reference image of 753? Mohawk? Are you trying to prevent this from occurring anymore in the village? Just for future,
Yes, that would
Yeah.
not be
yeah,
currently
you're,
allowed.
okay, got it.
Basically, it's one full shed is problematic. The double wing hat is worst case scenario.
Got it, okay. Got it.
Yeah, and given the nature of your cottage, even if you are successful in doing that, the owners may just end up with three smaller rooms.
Okay.
So instead of having two little bedrooms, they may get three, but they're not going to be very large.
Seem to be in
Yeah.
trouble.
And the last question is, have they thought about adding on the back? Does that give them anything? They need more square footage.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I would imagine the way I'm looking at, expanded footprint projects right now, I'm advising to go up so we can avoid foundation, subcontractor and excavation. It's really cost prohibitive at the moment, so that I'm sure that's driving some of this.
Yeah, otherwise they'd have to make the living room a bedroom.
Yeah.
Which is,
And I do know that if
I'm very curious where the master, what's going on here.
in the case of if they do look to expand the total footprint of the property, there has been precedence in the past, like wrong, to sacrifice our lot coverage limit requirements in order to save the integrity of the small cottages.
Okay.
So there's some opportunity, there's some give and take there to minimize the hatting of cottages.
Okay.
Not saying we can build out to the extent of the entire lot, but there's some conversation to be had there.
All right.
but yeah, if they say move their master bedroom to the first floor living room and then want to build another sort of kitchen great room addition to the rear to offset that. Because otherwise, yeah, how you get three kids on that second floor.
That opens up floor height questions and how do you engage the new roof to the old roof? And there's precedence of how that can be done throughout the village too. But it just is another hurdle to get past with expanding the footprint.
Thank you.
All right,
Yes, thank you.
anything else you need from us?
No, have a good nice evening.
Thank you very much. We need to go back to item number 3 and continue that one. Unless the applicant wants us to rule on that without, can we rule on that without them?
I've not heard anything from them about it specifically. I'm gonna assume yes, but I can't say for sure.
This one is light fixture,
That is all.
just light fixtures.
For 3 separate locations. And they're all smaller than the size of the existing like they.
They're all going into some locations. I think I'm okay ruling on it. All right, may call us the table. Item 3, GV-22-07-021 74 City Park Avenue. Let the record show the applicant is not here.
Mr. Chairman, on item GV 22-07021-784 City Park Avenue, I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
Question on the motion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Much.
That off the great start, Sydney. Anthony.